Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome to this episode of our radio show, and today we have with us Jessie Beard, who has written a couple books, but we're going to be talking about this newest one, the one we know the most. Welcome, Jessie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Sure. So you have an interesting life, and I want to touch upon that real quickly. You were born in the Midwest, from what I've understood. And if I understood you correctly, it was during the time of the Dust Bowl. Is that correct?
Well, when my family moved from Kentucky, my father came out when he was just a young teenager to California. Okay. And then, of course, he went out the end of World War II, towards the end of World War II, and stayed. And I was, my family and I, my siblings and I were born in the 50s, early 50s. So he was out there and did some Navy time and that sort of thing. So.
Okay. And so your father's name is George.
George, yes. And he's still alive, by the way. He's 90 years old, or be 91 pretty soon.
Okay, because that's where I was a little confused, because I didn't think you were that old.
No.
But I thought I'd double check on that, because you never know these days.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't quite word that the way that I needed to. As I look back on it, I thought, well, that's not quite worded the way that I wanted it to be.
Well, that's the beauty of being a writer. You get to change things around and keep working on it. So
that's very true.
Your family has obviously a lot of roots across North Carolina. They touch base in Oklahoma, from what I understood, and also California. You're in Texas now, so you have a lot of places, which helped you when you wrote Cowtown, Texas, 1872, your book. How did you pull all of that movement into this book?
Well, what happened was I've always been interested in telling stories, and the Western genre is my favorite. And, of course, Texas history, we moved here in 1961. And then I found out that we had some relatives that we believe, there's a James Beard died at the Alamo. So I did some research with my Mormon uncle and found out that there was 3 uncles that had left Kentucky in the early 1830s, and one was a James Beard, and I found out later that he had died at the Alamo. So and then there was 2 other brothers, and there was a newspaper clipping about them that said that they were in the black bean and white bean thing, a newspaper article that my uncle and I had found. So anyway, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, wow, man, that would be a cool story to have them, to write a period piece and have that kind of intermingled with Texas history, because that is my favorite subject in the world. I've been here since, I guess, we first came here in the early 60s, and I've pretty much made this my home. So I boiled all that down, and I moved everything back at the Battle of San Jacinto and had my family come from Kentucky to Texas. And it's based on historical fiction with a lot of family things mixed in there, even though they weren't there on all those occasions and all those places. So that's kind of where the roots of that started.
Cool. And so your book involves 3 different families. As you mentioned,
yes.
They have come from different places. They have lived or settled certain areas such as New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas. But you also have, which I kind of find interesting here, you have a character named Standing Moon, who's an Indian princess.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I knew quite a bit about the history of Quanah Parker. My initial take on it was these rangers and these people would meet him and his band in northern Texas, and that I don't know why I came up with the name Standing Moon. It just kind of popped out. I don't know what I'm going to say till I actually pull the trigger on it. It's why I call it when you engage the writing process of it. I pull the trigger, and then all of a sudden it just popped out. And so I did change her father's name to a friend, my dad's friend that he was in the service with at the end of World War II, Eagle Shield. And so I swapped that out so I did not get I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, Native American or anything, so I used all fictional people, and that's how I brought her about.
Cool.
So Quanah Parker was trying to integrate his family into that. Go ahead.
Okay, was there a specific reason, and you just basically did, as to why you had an Indian princess involved in this? I mean, a lot of people who tell the stories really don't involve the Indians in that context. So was there another motivation behind having that added in?
There was. When Quanah Parker quit doing his raids, and I think the last major one that he was involved with was, if I'm correct in this, was Adobe Walls. And he kind of took the wind out of his sails, I believe, if I'm not a historian and don't know exact dates, but he was one of the few Indians that was, how do I say it? He assimilated into his white half of his mother's side, assimilated and became a well-known rancher and cattleman and politician on some level, Indian advocacy, that sort of thing. And I knew that he was wanting to better his people. And I figured that if he had a daughter, and what better way to take his daughter and to have her live among the whites, she would be, let's say she'd be a half white or quarter white, I guess she would be, and have her assimilate into the white culture to learn all she can and bring that back to her family, her Native American family. And so she was intending on going back to her father's band, and in my story, I haven't brought her back yet, and may later on in the sequel to this one.
And so you have started a sequel, from what I understand.
Yes, I'm about 10 chapters into the sequel. They are in Wichita Falls now, going across Comancheria in 1873. More characters have been introduced and lost some and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with that part of it. But have quite a ways to go on that second one yet.
The impression I have in reference to the characters is that you really have focused in to have some really strong women characters. Am I missing that? Or, is that about right?
Yes, you're exactly right on it. The title of my book, of this story, I wanted to call it Ladies of Cowtown. And I wanted to have strong female figures in this because they played such an integral part of the taming of the West, if you will, that sort of thing. And they were underrepresented in motion pictures and novels, I think, across the spectrum of entertainment type thing. So I wanted to have these four ladies be the core group, and then I ended up changing it to Cowtown, Texas, 1872, because that's kind of when it started. But I wanted the females to be in there and to have real strong characters throughout the next 150 years or so, their families and descendants and so forth. So they were became matriarchs of Fort Worth society through the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, right up until the turn of the century, and had offspring and children that were going off on their own and became very wealthy and that sort of thing. So I wanted those women to be in there, like in that capacity.
And I'm sure with the movement going on at this point in time of the show, this is a great thing for women. But they definitely did have a major part in the Wild West. It wasn't all about the men, because men got killed constantly. So the women didn't have as much death, if I remember correctly, and actually had to carry on and do a lot of the work and stuff. So, you
That's
plan on
exactly
making
right.
A trilogy?
Yes. A trilogy? I'm planning 2 more books after this one. The one I have in the works right now, plus another one that will take them into their descendants, these ladies' descendants and the men, into the 21st century in Fort Worth society. So I've got the second book I'm on, plus the third one, and it will skip right on through over the decades, right on up to present time, with the descendants of these ladies and these rangers, ex-rangers, and cowboys that are in it now.
And you definitely are showing that not only were they ranchers, but they were oil barons. They were also politicians. I mean, you have a wide gamut of professions that they went into. Is there a reason you made it so wide and not focus in on just one?
Well, I look at the big picture of things, Alan, and I feel that if my family were there, what would they have done? And I know my personality, my brothers and sisters' personalities. If we were there, we would strive to not just be pigeonholed into one little area, being a shopkeeper or this or that. We'd have greater, I don't know exactly the word, ambition to move on. And I just kind of put my family back in that period. What would they do, knowing my siblings, my cousins, my wonderful cousins, and all of them? What would they do? And that's kind of where I came up with that, and having a wide spectrum of people and characters in there that would do what I think they would do, what I hope they would do if they were back in that time.
Now, you had mentioned that you had family member that was part of the Alamo. So prior to learning that, did you have the writing bug? Were you doing any other writing before then?
Well, I will tell you, when I turned 50, I hate to say it, but I really didn't go to school and have very, very, very limited formal education. And so at about 50, I had a piece of wood, and I thought, well, can I sculpt something out of this? And what the hell, can I do this? So I started carving on that with the angle grinders, and I did knock off the big hunks with saws because it was easier. But when I got down to the detail, for some reason it just clicked, and I saw things in 3 dimensions in my head and can work around it. And I ended up doing a lot of Western art in mesquite, and I did some in marble and some in a little bit in limestone. But I like the real hardwoods and marble, of course. But I did a number of things, and people were just kind of like, wow, how the heck did you do this? And I didn't have anybody teaching me anything. I just kind of self-taught. Well, that went on for about 4 years, 4.5 years or so, and I made a bit of a living at it. And then I was sitting around going, man, I'm just not fulfilling myself. I'm missing something. I'm not quite there where I want to be. So I sat down and I came up with this. I've always had all kinds of stories in my head. My grandfather wrote a bit of stories. He never was able to get anything published. But so I think the genetics were there. The genetics for that were there in me, and I started bringing them out when I turned 50 with the art. And then I switched over to the writing, and the first thing I said was, how the heck do you start? What's the first thing to do? So I went to the library and I looked at it, and nothing was there that was written in, just that jumped out at me how to start a book. So I said the first word was "the," and then I went from there, and I just kept on working on it. And the family genetics, I think, play a lot in that. And I think we've probably had some people that wrote poetry, and I know my grandfather did some writing, and we've had some creative people in our genealogy that I know of.
Great. Well, it's time for us to step away and let the sponsors do their thing. We will be back in just a moment.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network.
Have you ever thought what you would do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? Charlotte Cannon has lived the journey caring for 3 parents with dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Her book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents, is a survival guide for adult children caring for aging seniors. Her book is available at books.txauthors.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore. With only 2 golden rings, 10 days worth of supplies, and the guidance of an old redwood tree, Toby and Cameron Hunter begin the journey of a lifetime. Get your copy of The Guardian by L.M. Nelson, available as a paperback or an ebook at your favorite bookstore now.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit ebg247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At ebg247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's ebg247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love ebg247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at ebg247.com.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome back to today's show. We have been talking with Jessie Beard about his book, Cowtown Texan, 1872. It's the first of 3 volumes. But he also has written another book, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Welcome back, Jessie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So you've actually got Cowtown done. You're working on volume 2, but you actually have a third book that's not related to these that you've recently published, correct?
Yes. Well, it's finished and everything is done. I just have to publish it. So I'm hopefully in another couple weeks I'll have that out there available through Amazon and Kindle.
And what's its title?
Well, it's called Fairies of the Mississippi Delta Land. Fairies of the Mississippi Delta Land. It's based on. Go ahead.
No, finish, please.
No, it's based on family in Arkansas, Kentucky that live along the Mississippi floodplains. So it's kind of based on them. They're modern people, but I put them in a modern setting, but as kind of hillbilly, redneck, not violent people, but I move them into the spiritual realm and use them and their the way my nephews and nieces are, and their hunting and their fishing and their lifestyle that they have in Arkansas and Kentucky, and their accents, their real strong accents. I moved all that into a fairy genre, to a fairy story. And it takes place in the Mississippi floodplains of Arkansas. And it spans from 1845, when the beginning of the potato famine, up until present.
Okay, so I've got to ask, why would you take those people and turn them into fairies for a novel? What made you possessed to do that?
Well, because I've been a student of, I love fairy tales, that sort of thing. I'm a grown man, and I love that sort of thing. Even at my age and the way I was raised, I love anything to do with that. So my thoughts were that I've seen just about every type of movie and that has to do with fairies, and most all of it is set in England or the UK. So the UK. So I thought, wow, I could turn. I know there's these little island, a forest in eastern Arkansas in a floodplain, and I thought, wow, that looks like it could be just a. I've often thought that over the years before I started writing, that could be a whole little kingdom out there that nobody knows about. And these little islands are anywhere from an acre to maybe 50 or 100 acres. And they're just these perfect little islands of green in the fields of soy and corn and cotton and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering to myself that, that would be a good setting for something. So I created this mythical land, and some of, like the ivory-billed woodpecker, for instance, that is extinct in Arkansas because of deforestation in the Mississippi flood plains. And so I have them in there, and I made up some other creatures like pigots and deerlets that the fairies hunt, because my family up there are avid hunters, and they're just good old down-home country people. So I took them and put put them in the roles of these mythical characters mixed with modern humans, modern time, teenage pregnancy, that sort of thing, but it all has a mythical twist to it and a pretty good tale. Excuse me.
So without giving too much away, what's the mystical aspect of it?
Well, they start off in the potato famine, as I said, 1845, 1847. They migrate to the United States in that period, and they are on a ship right now in the Atlantic coming this way with an English crew. Well, I've already written that part of it, and excuse me, I got a dry throat. I'm going to give him a sip of water. Anyway, so I brought him in, and I just thought that it would be a heck of a good story, and just kind of popped out. And I've got I think this first little short story is about 9,000 words, and it's complete and edited and ready to go. And I have my cover done. So I'm working on the second one now, and hopefully I'll have that done in a few more weeks and have both of them out there available.
And speaking of where books are available, where are your current book and hopefully this one will be available?
Well, they're available on Amazon and Kindle, so you can pull them up and read them, and you can order them through there. And I'm doing my first book signing in Wimberley this coming Saturday, I believe it is. So I'm excited about that. So they'll be available there and on Amazon and Kindle.
Great. And as far as your other writing, you've got your Western, you've got now this fairy. You're working on your third one that's related to the Western. Do you have any other ones that are in the back of your mind that you're trying to think of or are coming to life?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question, because I have, as you have surmised, I was raised pretty rough, and my father was the Grapes of Wrath. He and his siblings were kind of in that era of the Grapes of Wrath. They came to California in 39 or 40 for the first time, and came out from Oklahoma, through Oklahoma, and had siblings born there where they were on their trail migrating out west. So, and then they married, and my siblings and my cousins all came along over the next couple decades. So I'm starting a book, and I've already talked to my dad and some of my family members about writing. I don't know if I can use the Grapes of, I'm not comparing myself because I don't know what else to call it, but I'm calling it The Children of the Grapes of Wrath, a True Story. So it's based on me and my family, my siblings alone, and it goes from 1938, 39, all the way up to 78, to when I got out of the service. And so I'm using that and all the things that happened across the United States to me and my siblings. So I'm calling it, I'm hoping I can use the Grapes of Wrath, or Children of the Grapes of Wrath, a True Story. So that's kind of what
that
I'm
will be
working
interesting if you're able to do that. That's a good title. And a lot of this came from just the research you did when you started finding out about the Alamo relationship and stuff like that, correct?
Well, it kind of, yes, but people would find it hard to believe that Anglos like us were raised the way that we were by a parent who thought that was a good way to raise his family, whether you're black, white, or brown, or whatever the case may be. So having said that, and being raised the way that we were, I talked to my brother about it, and I feel like that people would not believe the life that we led until the mid-70s. And our father, bless his heart, he's still hanging in there. I told him I wouldn't pull any punches with it when I did it. But I think these two books that I've the first one and the one I'm getting ready to release, and the third one, have set me up to write an actual true story of events that happened to me and my siblings, and to go, span a 20, 25-year period from, say, 1960, my part of it, from 1960 until the mid-70s. that's what I'm working on. It's a pretty good undertaking, but it's all true. And what I write in there is not going to be any embellishment or fictional things about it. It will all be real events, real times, real places across the United States. So,
you definitely set up the hook there to get everybody interested in it. So I wish you the best of luck in getting it out. We only have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to ask if you had any words of wisdom or encouragement for somebody who wanted to get into writing.
Well, I do. I am very opinionated on that subject. Of course, you surmise by the way that I've talked, that I've communicated, that I do not have really any education. If somebody like me can sit down, teach themselves to sculpt and do pretty good at it, and then all of a sudden pick up writing and do even better, and I just had really good reviews on everything that I've done, and I think that if you have a little format and you think about it a little bit, anybody can write. I feel that way. Now, I may be totally wrong. People say that I'm wrong in that belief, but it's there's certain things that just pop into place, and I've learned them myself because I didn't go to school, so I don't know anything about that. As occasional wise, I've just learned, and whatever I do is strictly from the heart and from the gut. So I think people can do it, and I think they need to just jump in there and say, I'm going to do it, and take that first step and go.
And I totally agree with you on that. And with that, we are at the end of the show. I thank you very much. I want to remind our listeners that we're talking to Jessie Bird, who has written Cowtown, Texas, 1872. And it is available at Amazon and all your favorite little bookstores, including books.txauthors.com. His new book will be out shortly, and we'll keep a posting on that. And, of course, then volumes 2 and 3 will be out over the next couple of years for the Cowtown as the saga continues. Thank you very much, Jessie, and we wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely.
Award-winning children's author Maria Ashworth has written books that deal with today's issues for children like bullying, friendship, blended families, love, and acceptance. Her recent release, Sushi Kitty, and other works can be found at mariaashworth.com or books.txauthors.com. Connect with her on Facebook and Twitter for speaking events and presentations. Gatekeeper Press is a full-service publishing house and distribution aggregator that prides itself on offering the highest quality self-publishing services in the industry. Gatekeeper authors earn 100% of their proceeds, retain 100% of their rights, and work one-on-one with their own author manager who delivers a 100% author-centric hand-holding experience. In addition to working with individual authors, Gatekeeper Press works behind the scenes for publishers of all sizes, and due to its efficiency and quality, also white labels its service to other self-publishing companies. Gatekeeper's mission is to open Gatekeeper's mission is to open the gates of the book publishing world by offering the highest quality services at affordable prices. See our testimonial page at Gatekeeper Press mission is to open Gatekeeper's Press mission is to open the gates of the book publishing world by offering the highest quality services at affordable prices. To learn more or to read some of the testimonials, go to gatekeeperpress.com.
Well, thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.